My girlfriend refused my proposal after cheating with a new guy from work, so I stayed quiet. And set a trap that shattered all she thought she had. I'm a 27-year-old man telling this partly because I need to get it off my chest and partly because, yeah, I'm still in shock about how things turned out. I'd been with my girlfriend, Liz, a 26-year-old woman, for 4 years. 4 years is a pretty long time when you're with someone, you know. I really thought she was the one. We met through a friend, and honestly, we just clicked right from the start. Things were fun and easy, like we could talk for hours and never get bored. It's hard to find someone who just gets you like that. My family loved her. My mom would ask about her all the time. My dad thought she was great, and even my siblings got along with her. Liz wasn't just my girlfriend, she was, in a way, already part of the family. And it went both ways too. I got along really well with her parents and even her little brother, who I'd sometimes hang out with when we'd all get together. I think part of me felt like we were already halfway to being a family, you know, like it was just a matter of making it official. We'd had plenty of conversations about the future, marriage, kids, the works. Liz would light up every time we talked about it, and she'd start imagining what our wedding would look like, what kind of house we'd live in, how many kids we might have. It wasn't like these were vague, one-day dreams either. We'd actually gone deep into the details, sometimes down to where we'd like to live and even throwing around some name ideas for future kids. So, yeah, I thought we were solid. I guess all this is why I never really questioned where we stood. It seemed like we were on the same page, no doubts. And when you're that sure of someone, you start to think about the next steps. So, about 6 months ago, I decided that I'd propose to her. I started saving up, looking into rings, figuring out how I'd do it to make it special. I spent months dropping little hints here and there just to make her excited. I didn't want to give away the whole plan, but I also wanted her to know that something big was coming. I even joked about her finally being stuck with me forever, and she'd laugh and say, "I'm already stuck with you, dummy." I took that as a good sign. Fast forward to last weekend, I'd been planning this for months, right? I booked this nice resort for a weekend getaway, something really cozy and a bit fancy. The idea was to make it a memory she'd never forget. I had the ring all ready to go, and I planned out this whole evening. Private dinner, scenic view, the works. It was going to be just us under the stars, and then I'd get down on one knee and ask her to marry me. It felt like the perfect plan. So, we get to the resort, and everything's going smoothly. We're both in a good mood, enjoying the time away, and I'm thinking to myself, this is it, this is the moment I'm finally going to make it happen. I mean, the build-up was making me nervous as hell but also really excited. That night, we go to dinner. I booked a private little spot where we could sit out on this balcony with a view of the water. The place was decorated really nicely with candles and lights. It was one of those settings you'd see in a rom-com, and I thought she'd be over the moon. Dinner goes great. We're chatting, laughing, reminiscing about old memories, and at one point, she's telling me this story about a time she got lost in her hometown, and we're both cracking up. I thought, this is exactly why I want to spend my life with her. She's funny, she's kind, she's got this spark that just makes life feel a little bit better, you know. So, after dessert, I finally feel like, alright, it's time. I reach into my pocket, pull out the ring, and start saying all this stuff I'd rehearsed in my head a million times. Things like how much she means to me, how I can't imagine my life without her, and all the usual sappy stuff. And then I popped the question. Now, I was expecting maybe some happy tears, a big yes, maybe a little jumping up and down like you see in those proposal videos. But she just freezes, like totally deer in the headlights kind of shocked. She just stares at me, and I can feel my stomach drop. After what feels like forever, she finally says something, but it's not a yes. It's more like, can we, wait a few more months? I honestly didn't even know what to say. I just sat there, stunned. A few months? I thought we were already on the same page, but apparently, I'd completely misread the situation. She goes on, trying to explain herself, saying she's not rejecting me or anything, just that she needs more time to be sure. She said she just wasn't in the right mental space at that moment and she wanted things to feel perfect. She kept saying, this is still a yes, it's just not an official yes yet, but that didn't make me feel any better. I just put myself out there, only to be met with not yet. I tried to keep it together, nodded along, and forced a smile, but inside, I was crushed. Here I was, thinking this was going to be this huge, life-changing moment, and instead, I got a giant question mark hanging over my head. I felt like I'd planned all this for nothing. We ended the night with her still trying to reassure me, saying stuff like, I love you, and I want this, but I just need a bit more time to make sure I'm fully ready. I mean, I wanted to believe her, I really did, but it's hard to stay optimistic when you've just put everything on the line and the person you love basically says they're not sure about you. That whole night, I barely slept. I kept replaying everything in my head, wondering if there were signs I missed or if I'd rushed things. Maybe I hadn't paid attention to her hints or whatever, but from where I stood, everything seemed perfect. It was like I'd been living in some bubble, and now I was just floating around, feeling like an idiot. So, yeah, that's how the perfect proposal I'd spent months planning ended up. So, after that awkward, disappointing night, things were weird between us. I mean, she didn't flat out reject me, but being told she needs a few more months is not exactly what you want to hear when you're down on one knee with a ring in your hand. The next morning, we checked out of the resort, and the drive back home was tense and quiet. I think we were both trying to process what had happened, but neither of us wanted to be the one to bring it up first. I wanted to ask, "What do you mean you need more time?" But I was worried about what she'd say. I was still embarrassed, honestly, and I didn't know if I could handle more disappointment. When we got home, she kept apologizing. She'd say stuff like, "You know I love you, right? I just need a little more time to be sure." Every time she said it, it felt like she was pouring salt on a wound. I get that people can get nervous about big decisions, but this was supposed to be something we both wanted. I'd spent years with her, thinking we were on the same path, and now she was acting like she wasn't so sure. She kept trying to explain herself, saying she needed to be in the right mental space. It was honestly confusing. Like, what does mental space even mean in this case? It felt like she was dancing around some reason but wasn't giving me the full picture. Part of me wanted to ask her outright if there was something else going on, something that would make her hesitate, but I also didn't want to hear an answer I wasn't ready for. So, I just kept my mouth shut and nodded along, trying to act understanding, but inside, I was feeling all sorts of things: anger, sadness, confusion. For the next few days, things felt strained. She'd act normal one minute, like everything was fine, then the next, I'd catch her looking at me with this guilty expression, like she knew she'd hurt me. And, yeah, she did. It's hard to just brush that off and go back to normal after something like that. She'd tell me she still saw a future with me, that she still wanted us to be together, but for some reason, it just didn't feel real anymore. It's like that initial excitement I had was replaced by this constant doubt. I kept replaying the proposal in my head, thinking maybe I'd done something wrong or misjudged things. Was I moving too fast? Did I not pay attention to her signals? But we talked about marriage so many times before. I really didn't understand what had changed. Then, one evening, she came home from work and sat me down, like she had this big speech ready. She started talking about how she just needed a few more months to feel completely ready, as if time alone was going to make some magical change in her. She kept saying, "It's not you, it's me," and all that typical stuff. She even tried to reassure me by saying we were basically engaged, but it just didn't sit right with me. I told her, "You either want to marry me or you don't. It shouldn't be this complicated." But she brushed it off, saying she was sure about us, just not right now. Now, tell me, how is anyone supposed to be okay with that? Here's this person I love and thought I'd spend my life with, telling me I'm not enough for her to make up her mind. I started getting more frustrated, feeling like I was being led on. If she wasn't ready now, what guarantee did I have that she'd be ready later? But every time I tried to bring this up, she'd start crying, saying she didn't want to lose me and that she just needed me to understand. So, I felt trapped between pushing for answers and not wanting to make her more upset. It was like walking on eggshells. I wanted to demand more clarity, but I also didn't want to risk pushing her further away. I figured maybe she really does just need some time, maybe she's genuinely overwhelmed and would come around soon. But I could feel myself starting to build a wall around my emotions. I didn't want to get hurt even more, so I started pulling back in small ways. I'd spend a little less time around her, keep conversations more surface level, and avoid talking about the future altogether. It was like I was waiting for her to make the next move, to see if she'd give me a straight answer, but nothing changed. She could tell something was off, and one night, she asked me if I was angry at her. I was tempted to say, "Yeah, of course I am," but I just shrugged and told her, "I'm fine." She kept pushing, saying she felt like I was drifting away. I told her, "I don't know what you expect. You told me you needed time, so I'm giving it to you." That shut her up, but the look on her face told me she knew exactly what I meant. She'd put our relationship in limbo, and I wasn't just going to sit there and pretend it was okay. Then, there was this one evening, and it kind of felt like a breaking point. She sat beside me on the couch and started talking about this big project at work, how stressed she was, and how she just needed everything to settle down before she could fully commit. She made it sound like the stress from work was somehow tied into why she couldn't say yes to the proposal. It didn't make any sense to me, but I nodded along. I could tell she was struggling, but I didn't understand how that stopped her from wanting to marry me if she actually loved me like she said. This whole waiting game was eating at me. Every day that went by, I felt myself slipping further away from her. It was like our relationship had a timer on it now, and I had no idea how much time was left, and I guess a part of me started preparing for the worst. I started thinking, what if she never feels ready? I'd invested years into this relationship, years thinking we were heading toward the same future, and now, it felt like I was left in the dark, waiting on her to figure out something I thought was already figured out. But she kept insisting she just needed time, as if that was supposed to make everything okay. And I kept trying to be understanding, but my patience was wearing thin. I'd lie in bed at night, thinking about how everything seemed so perfect just a week ago, and now, it was like I didn't even know the person next to me. It was only a matter of time before I'd reach a breaking point, but at this stage, I still hoped that things would get back on track. Alright, so at this point, I was stuck in this limbo with Liz, waiting for her to decide if she was ready to commit or not. I felt like I was getting mixed signals every day, and honestly, it was driving me insane. One minute, she'd act like everything was fine, all cuddly and sweet, and the next, she'd be distant, like she was somewhere else entirely. I didn't know what to do with myself. So, I figured it would help to talk to someone, but I wasn't exactly ready to go to my parents or friends. I mean, who wants to admit that their girlfriend of 4 years isn't sure about them? So, I ended up talking to my sister. Now, let me tell you, my sister doesn't hold back. She's blunt to the point where it can be brutal, but she's also incredibly perceptive. She's got this knack for reading people and situations, and she doesn't sugarcoat anything. So, I laid everything out for her, the proposal, the awkward drive back, Liz saying she needed more time, the whole shebang. And my sister's reaction? She immediately tells me something's off here, like seriously off. At first, I thought she was just being dramatic, but she kept pressing, saying that it didn't make any sense for Liz to pull back like this after 4 years, especially when we talked about marriage so much already. She asked if Liz had been acting weird lately, if there were any changes in her behavior, and I said not really because I didn't want to sound paranoid. But then my sister hit me with something that made my stomach drop. She said, "Look, what Liz did, that's classic girl code for when something else is going on. When a girl suddenly hesitates on a proposal, it's usually because there's someone else in the picture, and she's trying to keep her options open." I didn't want to believe it. I mean, this was Liz we were talking about. We'd been together for years, and I thought I knew her better than anyone. But my sister kept going, saying that if Liz needed time to decide, then maybe she was already seeing someone else or at least considering it. My heart sank because, deep down, I knew there were little things that hadn't added up lately, but I'd brushed them off, telling myself I was overthinking things. My sister could tell I was struggling to wrap my head around it, so she told me a story about her friend who went through something similar. This friend's boyfriend had pulled the same "I need time" card when she proposed to him. Turned out, he was actually seeing someone else and didn't want to break it off until he was sure he wanted to stick with her. My sister warned me that I could be dealing with the same situation. And as much as I wanted to push that idea away, it hit too close to home. I asked her what I should do, and she told me, plain and simple, you need to dig a little. Find out if there's another guy she's hiding. You don't deserve to be stuck in this guessing game if she's not being honest with you. The thought of digging into my own girlfriend's life made me feel gross. I never imagined I'd be that guy, you know, the one who has to check up on his partner because he doesn't know if he can trust her. But my sister was right. I needed some kind of answer. If Liz was hesitating because of another guy, then I deserved to know. So, I started paying more attention. I wasn't doing anything crazy like going through her phone or following her around, but I did start to notice little things. She'd get texts late at night and hold her phone a bit closer than usual, or she'd take longer than usual to grab drinks with friends after work. I tried not to jump to conclusions, but these little things started piling up, and it was like I was connecting the dots without even trying. Then, one day, she mentioned this guy from work, a new colleague who had just joined her team. She mentioned him casually, saying he was nice and fun to be around, but I noticed how her face lit up a little when she talked about him. I tried to play it cool, but my mind was racing. I started to wonder if this was the guy my sister was warning me about. My sister's voice was in my head the whole time, telling me to pay attention, to look for the signs. And as much as I hated it, I couldn't stop myself. Every time Liz would go out, I'd wonder if she was with him. Every time she'd get a text and smile down at her phone, I'd wonder if it was him. I was driving myself crazy with the suspicion, but once the thought was there, I couldn't unthink it. Finally, one night, I decided I'd had enough. I was done sitting around in silence, letting all these doubts eat me up inside. So, I asked her casually about this guy from work. I made it sound like I was just curious, like I was trying to keep up with her life and friends, but she got this defensive look right away, like I'd caught her off guard. She shrugged it off, saying they were just friends and that he was cool to hang out with, but the way she reacted felt off. And that's when I knew my sister was probably right. The conversation didn't go anywhere after that. She changed the subject quickly, but I was already starting to put pieces together. Maybe I was jumping to conclusions, but there was too much that didn't add up. I couldn't stop thinking about how she needed time to decide if she was ready to be with me but didn't seem to need time to hang out with this guy from work. The doubts turned into something darker, and I felt like I was stuck in this mess where I didn't know what was real and what wasn't. I felt sick. Here I was, considering spending my life with this person, but now I wasn't even sure if she wanted the same thing. I started to feel angry, not just at her but at myself for not seeing it sooner, for trusting her so completely that I ignored all the signs until my sister practically had to slap me with the truth. That night, I sat alone in our living room, just staring at the wall, wondering what the hell I was supposed to do. I hadn't talked to Liz about any of this directly. I was still waiting for her to come clean on her own, hoping she'd admit something without me having to pry. But now, with all the pieces laid out, I couldn't ignore what I was seeing. I didn't have concrete proof, but deep down, I knew there was something she wasn't telling me. And now, I was stuck with this knowledge, not knowing if I should confront her or just let it play out, hoping she'd choose to be honest. But either way, things had changed between us, and there was no going back. Alright, so I've got my sister's words stuck in my head, nagging me every time I see Liz. The whole girl code thing she'd explained was making more and more sense, and it got to a point where I just couldn't ignore it. I didn't want to believe Liz would do something like this, but once that seed of doubt was planted, everything she did just seemed to reinforce it. I knew I had to get to the bottom of it, or I'd drive myself crazy. I never wanted to be that guy who snoops, but I needed to know the truth. So, one night, while she was asleep, I grabbed her phone. I felt guilty as hell, but at this point, I'd convinced myself I was just protecting myself from more hurt. I scrolled through her messages, trying not to wake her up, heart pounding like crazy the whole time. And then I saw it, messages from the guy at her work. At first, it seemed innocent enough, like friendly coworker talk, but then I kept scrolling, and things got questionable. There were a few late-night messages that sounded way too flirty for just friends. He'd sent a miss you text after some work trip they'd gone on together, and she'd replied with "Amy too." And that's when I knew. I mean, you don't tell someone you miss them unless there's something more going on, right? I didn't say anything to her that night. I put her phone back and just lay there, staring at the ceiling, feeling sick. I didn't sleep at all. The next morning, I could barely look at her. She was all chipper, acting like nothing was wrong, talking about her plans for the day, and I was just there, sitting with this feeling like a punch in the gut. The worst part? I wasn't even sure she was aware I knew. She just kept acting like everything was fine, like we were still the same couple planning a future together. And I was watching her, wondering if it was all an act. Every little thing she did started to annoy me. She'd tell me about her day, and I'd start thinking, are you really just at work, or are you spending time with him? It was eating away at me. So, after a couple of days of this, I couldn't take it anymore. I asked her point blank, are you still happy with me? Like, are you sure you're not interested in anyone else? She looked shocked, like I just accused her of something ridiculous. She said, of course I am. Why would you even ask that? But I noticed the way she got defensive, like she was holding something back. And when I mentioned the guy from work, her face changed completely. She got all flustered, stammered out something about how he was just a friend and that she didn't want me to worry. But I wasn't buying it. I told her I'd seen the messages, that I knew she'd been talking to him late at night, and that I felt like I didn't even know her anymore. She tried to brush it off, saying it was just harmless fun and that she never actually did anything with him. She kept repeating that they were just friends and that she'd never cross any lines, but her excuses were getting thinner and thinner. And then she hit me with the worst line yet, I was just confused. I didn't know if I was ready to get married or not, and he was, I don't know, a distraction. A distraction? That's all I was to her now, some option on the side while she figured out if this guy at work was a better fit. I'd spent 4 years with this woman, and suddenly, I was nothing more than the safe choice while she flirted around with some coworker. I was furious, but at the same time, I felt completely crushed. Here I'd been, planning a future with her, only to find out she'd been wavering this whole time. She tried to apologize, saying it wasn't serious and that she'd only been talking to him because she was unsure about us. I told her, you should have been talking to me about it, not some other guy. But she just kept saying she was confused and didn't want to hurt me, which honestly made zero sense. I needed a break, so I left the apartment and just went for a drive, trying to clear my head. I kept asking myself how it had gotten to this point. How could someone who seemed so committed suddenly just switch, and all because she didn't want to be honest with me? My sister's warning was right. Liz was keeping her options open, waiting to see if this guy was worth it before making a final choice. And the worst part? I was the backup plan. After my drive, I came back, and Liz was waiting for me, looking miserable. She'd been crying, but instead of feeling bad for her, I just felt numb. She begged me to understand, kept saying she was sorry and that she knew she'd messed up. She promised to cut things off with him, to focus on us, and tried to convince me that she was ready to commit. But how was I supposed to believe her? Every promise she made felt hollow. I didn't know what to say, so I just told her I needed time to think, and I went to bed. I could hear her crying in the other room, but I was too drained to care. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, wondering if I could ever trust her again. Every memory I had of our relationship was tainted by what I'd just found out. I kept asking myself if I'd been a fool the entire time, believing in this perfect future with someone who wasn't even sure about me. The next morning, Liz was all over me, trying to make things right. She made breakfast, kept hugging me, telling me she loved me and that she'd fix this. But it was like I was looking at a stranger. I couldn't shake the feeling that she'd already betrayed me. Even if she claimed she hadn't done anything physical, emotional cheating is still cheating, and I'd felt completely replaced in her life. She kept texting me throughout the day, sending these long messages about how she was going to end things with the guy and how she'd make it up to me. But it was too late. I'd already started to detach, bit by bit, walling off the feelings I had for her. Once that trust is broken, it's like there's a fracture that no amount of apologies can heal. That night, she sat down with me and swore up and down that she was going to prove herself to me, that she'd cut off contact with him for good, and that she was finally ready to be with me fully. She had tears in her eyes, and she seemed desperate, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was just her backup, the safe choice she'd keep around while her other options fell apart. I sat there, staring at her, feeling this mix of anger and disappointment, knowing that no matter what she said, things would never be the same. So, after everything came out, things didn't magically get better. I wish I could say that her promises and apologies made me feel better, but they didn't. I could tell she was trying, and yeah, she stopped texting that guy and was all about showing me that she was committed, but I couldn't get past what had happened. It was like every time I looked at her, all I saw was someone who'd kept me as her backup plan. It didn't matter what she said now, the trust was gone, and I didn't know if I could get it back. Then came the part I wasn't expecting. About 2 weeks after her whole tearful confession, I thought things were finally calming down. I was still unsure, but I was giving her space to prove herself, or at least that's what I kept telling myself. Then, she came home one night, looking absolutely furious. She threw her bag on the table, barely even looked at me, and just blurted out, "He was cheating on me too." I didn't even know what to say. It was like the irony slapped us both in the face, and the room went dead quiet. Turns out, she'd been talking to one of her friends who also worked with that guy, and they let it slip that he'd been seeing someone else the whole time he was messing with her. I could see the anger and hurt in her eyes, but instead of feeling sympathy, I just felt nothing. Here she was, crying and upset because her side fling had done the exact same thing she'd done to me. The whole thing was just ridiculous. She started ranting about how she couldn't believe he'd betrayed her, how he was such a liar, and that she felt humiliated. And all I could think was, yeah, welcome to the club. She finally looked over at me, expecting me to say something, maybe comfort her, I don't know. But I just sat there, staring at her, wondering if she even realized the irony of it all. Then, she got all quiet, like she was finally piecing together how messed up the whole situation was. She sat down across from me, took a deep breath, and said, "I'm sorry, really. I don't know what I was thinking. I should have never doubted what we had." And then she did the thing I was dreading. She asked me to give her another chance, a real one. She wanted to start over, wanted me to propose to her again, this time with her full commitment. I think she genuinely thought that would fix everything, that we could just hit reset and everything would magically be okay. But I'd already checked out. Her words were just noise at that point, and I think she could see it in my face. I told her, "You already made your choice. You wanted him, and when he let you down, you came back to me. I'm not some consolation prize, Liz. You can't just throw me aside when you're unsure and then come back when it's convenient." She started crying again, saying she didn't mean it that way, that she just got caught up in something she didn't understand. But I was done. I told her, I can't spend my life with someone who isn't sure about me. If I'm not enough for you now, I never will be. She begged, trying to convince me that she was finally sure, that she'd made a mistake. But I wasn't having it. I couldn't trust a word coming out of her mouth. She'd shown me her true colors, and I couldn't unsee that. She tried to hug me, but I stepped back, and that's when the anger came out. She started accusing me of giving up too easily, saying I was throwing away everything we'd built over one mistake. She tried to guilt trip me, saying I should at least fight for us. But that just made me angrier. I told her, "You're the one who threw us away when you couldn't even decide if you wanted to be with me or some other guy. I'm not going to sit around waiting for you to figure out if I'm enough." I could see her getting defensive, but she didn't have anything to say back. She knew she'd messed up, but instead of just accepting it, she tried to make it my fault too, like I was the bad guy for not wanting to stick around and be her backup. So, I told her it was over. I said I wanted her to pack her stuff and leave. She looked at me like I'd just slapped her, totally shocked, like she never expected I'd actually end it. She started crying, saying she had nowhere to go, that she didn't think I'd kick her out. But I was done. I told her, "You can stay with your friend or find somewhere else. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like everything's okay. You made your choices, and I'm making mine." She cried, begged me to reconsider, but I stood my ground. I wasn't going to let her twist this around and make me feel guilty for finally standing up for myself. After a while, she got the message. She called a friend to come pick her up, and while she was packing, I just sat there, feeling a weird mix of relief and sadness. Part of me wanted to feel sorry for her, but I knew this was her own doing. When her friend showed up, she grabbed her bags, looked at me one last time, and said, "I hope you find someone who can make you happy." And then she left, just like that. 4 years together, gone. I didn't know what to feel. A part of me wanted to break down, but another part felt this strange freedom, like I'd finally taken back control of my life. After she left, I blocked her number and deleted all our pictures. I didn't want any reminders of the mess she'd made. It hurt, yeah, but it also felt like a weight off my shoulders. I'd spent so long thinking she was the one, only to realize she didn't value me the way I valued her. And I knew I couldn't go back, even if I wanted to. It's been a few days now, and I'm still processing everything. Some moments, I feel angry at her, other moments, I'm angry at myself for not seeing it sooner. But I know this was the right decision. I deserve someone who actually wants to be with me, not someone who has to test the waters before making up their mind. So, yeah, that's how it ended, not with some grand goodbye or big showdown, just a quiet, messy end to something I thought was going to be my future. It's not easy, but I know I made the right choice. It's been about a month since Liz packed up and left. I've done my best to move on, but every now and then, I hear updates through mutual friends or people who still keep in touch with her. The latest? Apparently, karma came back around, and it hit her hard. Not long after she left, she tried staying with her friend who'd picked her up, but it didn't last. That friend had just enough patience to help Liz out at first, but eventually, the drama got old, I guess. Liz leaned on her a little too much, and her friend had her own stuff to deal with. She wasn't about to keep being Liz's fallback plan forever. After getting the boot from there, Liz had no choice but to go back to her parents' place. And from what I've heard, that didn't go well either. Turns out, her parents were pretty disappointed when they found out what she'd done. They'd liked me, and they didn't appreciate finding out how she messed things up with someone they thought was a good match for her. I guess they realized how much of a mess she'd made and didn't want to deal with the fallout. They told her to get her act together, but she couldn't hold down a place to stay or really show them she'd learned anything. Eventually, they told her she needed to find somewhere else to live. So, now, she's basically out on her own with nowhere to go. The guy she'd messed around with at work? He's long gone and has already moved on. According to her friend, she's tried reaching out to a few other people, but most of them are done with the drama and just want to keep their distance. She's learned the hard way that you can't keep treating people like options without consequences. Part of me feels a little sorry for her, but not enough to do anything about it. She made her choices. She decided to throw everything we had away to chase something that clearly wasn't worth it, and now she's left dealing with the fallout. I've heard she's been bouncing between random places, trying to find somewhere to crash. And I won't lie, there's a certain satisfaction in knowing she's facing the consequences of her actions. It's funny how things work out sometimes. A few months ago, I would have done anything for her, and now, I don't feel much at all, just a sense of relief that I got out before I wasted even more time on someone who didn't value what we had. I'm moving forward, and I'm not looking back.